On the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, a man in a black suit and dark sunglasses calmly boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 at Portland International Airport. He handed a stewardess a note. She assumed it was a phone number, maybe a flirtatious gesture from a passenger. She tucked it in her pocket without reading it. The man leaned over and whispered, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." What followed over the next 4 hours would become the only unsolved case of air piracy in American aviation history. A crime so brazen, so perfectly executed, and so utterly baffling that the FBI would spend the next 45 years searching for answers. They never found them. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. The man who called himself Dan Cooper, the name D.B. Cooper was a media error that stuck, bought a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle for $20 cash. He was described as a white male, 40 to 50 years old, around 6 feet tall, with brown eyes and an olive complexion. He wore a black business suit, a white dress shirt, and a thin black tie. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He tipped the flight attendant. He was, by all accounts, calm, polite even, the kind of man you wouldn't look twice at. When Florence Schaffner finally read the note, her stomach dropped. The man had written that he had a bomb in his briefcase. He wanted $200,000 in negotiable American currency. He wanted 4 parachutes, 2 primary, 2 reserve, and he wanted a refueled jet to be ready on the tarmac. Schaffner discreetly signaled the cockpit. The captain radioed Seattle. The FBI was contacted. And suddenly, Flight 305, with 36 passengers aboard, was the center of the most audacious skyjacking in American history. Here's the thing that made Cooper different from every other hijacker who came before him. He wasn't trying to escape to Cuba. He wasn't making a political statement. He wanted money, and he had clearly thought this through. The plane circled Seattle for 2 hours while the FBI scrambled to meet his demands. They gathered $200,000 in unmarked, non-sequential $20 bills. The serial numbers were photographed and recorded. They assembled 4 parachutes, and they waited. Cooper was offered food. He declined. A stewardess brought him the bag of money anyway. He counted it, all there. He checked the parachutes. He sat back down and finished his bourbon. When the plane landed briefly in Seattle, he released all 36 passengers and the 2 flight attendants. Only the crew remained. Pilot William Scott, co-pilot William Radixak, flight engineer Harold Anderson, and a single stewardess, Tina Mucklow, who described Cooper as thoughtful and not cruel. Even as he hijacked a plane, he was considerate. He told the remaining crew where he wanted to go, Mexico City via Reno. He demanded they fly low, no higher than 10,000 feet, with the landing gear deployed and the cabin unpressurized. They pushed back. The plane couldn't make it to Mexico on 1 tank of fuel. He agreed to refuel in Reno. The rear air stair, a feature unique to certain Boeing 727S that lowered from the back of the plane, would remain unlocked. Then he sent Tina Mucklow to the cockpit. He told her not to come back. At approximately 8:11 p.m., somewhere over the dark forests of southwestern Washington, in rainy, turbulent, near-freezing conditions, D.B. Cooper strapped on a parachute, tied the bag of money to his body, and jumped into the night. The crew felt the aircraft shift slightly, a pressure change, then nothing. When the plane landed in Reno, the rear staircase was still deployed. The black tie was still on the seat. 2 of the 4 parachutes remained. Cooper was gone. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. They called it NORJAC, Northwest Hijacking. Agents combed hundreds of square miles of dense Pacific Northwest wilderness. They found nothing. No body, no parachute, no money. For years, investigators assumed Cooper had died in the jump. The conditions were brutal. A 200-mile-per-hour wind, freezing temperatures, and thick forests below. He jumped at night in a storm over terrain that would be nearly impossible to land in safely, wearing dress shoes and a business suit. Even experienced skydivers would struggle to survive those conditions, but they never found a body. The case went cold. And then, 9 years later, something extraordinary happened. In February 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging in a sandbar along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington, a spot called Tina Bar, when he unearthed a handful of rotting $20 bills. They were faded, rubber-banded in 3 packets, and partially disintegrated. But when investigators compared the serial numbers, their breath caught in their throats. The bills matched D.B. Cooper's ransom money. $5,800 had been recovered, but the rest of the $194,200 was never found. And the location raised more questions than it answered. The Tina Bar site was downstream from the Columbia River, but it was upstream from where experts believed Cooper had jumped. The bill's condition suggested they had been buried for years, not washed there by water. No other bills, not a single one, were ever found upstream, downstream, or anywhere else. The money find only deepened the mystery. If Cooper had died in the jump, where was the rest of the cash? If he survived, why was any money found at all? Had he buried it and never returned? Was he dead nearby, undiscovered in the forest? Or had he simply walked away, disappeared into ordinary American life, spending his nights knowing he'd pulled off the impossible? Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 1,000 suspects. Some were credible, most weren't. There was Richard McCoy, who hijacked another plane just 5 months after the Cooper case using an almost identical method. But he was caught, convicted, and later killed in a shootout. Some believed he was Cooper. The FBI ruled him out. There was Kenny Christiansen, a former paratrooper and Northwest Orient employee who some researchers believed fit the physical description. He died in 1994, leaving a cryptic note about a secret. His family pursued the lead for years. The FBI investigated and closed it. There was Robert Rackstraw, a man with a criminal past, military training, and enough aliases to fill a phone book. Investigators spent years on him. He denied it until his death in 2019. There were dozens more, each with a compelling piece of the puzzle, none with a definitive answer. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially suspended active investigation of the D.B. Cooper case. They cited limited resources and a lack of new credible leads. The case file, thousands of pages, was archived but not closed. Technically, it remains open. What makes D.B. Cooper so enduring isn't just the crime itself, it's what he represents. Cooper became a folk hero almost immediately. Songs were written about him, movies were made, he showed up on t-shirts. In the Pacific Northwest especially, he became a kind of Robin Hood figure, the ordinary man who stuck it to an airline and got away with it. Every year, the small town of Ariel, Washington, near the believed jump zone, hosts a D.B. Cooper festival. People dress as him, they toast to him. The FBI, for their part, has always been less charmed. They noted that Cooper's jump was almost certainly suicidal under those conditions, that the chances of him surviving were extremely slim. They believe he probably died in the wilderness, his body consumed by the decades. But here's what keeps people up at night. If he died in the jump, where's the money? The $194,200 in bills, photographed and cataloged by the FBI, was never found except for that one rotting bundle on a sandbar. If those bills were buried before Cooper died, where did he bury them? If he survived long enough to bury them, why didn't he survive longer? And here's the other thing. In 45 years of investigation, with 1,000 suspects examined, the FBI never definitively eliminated a single one. They never found a body that matched. They never found a parachute. They never found the missing money. D.B. Cooper could be dead. He could be alive. He could be someone's grandfather who told this story as a wild dream, a fiction, something that couldn't possibly have happened. While the FBI photographs of $20 bills sat in an archive somewhere, perfectly matching the serial numbers in his memory. We may never know. And maybe that's exactly how he wanted it. The last confirmed sighting of Dan Cooper was by Tina Mucklow, the stewardess who sat with him for hours as the plane circled Seattle and then flew south toward Reno. She said he was calm, that he thanked her, that when she left the cabin for the last time, he was sitting quietly, looking out the window at the dark. She went to the cockpit. She heard nothing, felt only the faint pressure shift, and then he was gone. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, subscribe to Lockdog for more true crime and unsolved mysteries every week. These are the cases that history forgot, the ones where the truth is stranger than fiction and justice never quite arrived. We'll see you next time.